It is Wednesday, my dudes.
Geek out!
Hey, welcome to another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
And this week we have, our another Marvel Comics interview.
Woo!
I know, pretty sweet. And here's the cool thing. In the denouement of this episode, if I can get French for a second.
Denouement for any of you that don't speak French.
Yeah, c'est impossible, c'est un grand dommage.
Omelette du fromage.
Which has always annoyed me because that's grammatically incorrect.
Correct.
It's...
I mean, yes, I agree.
Yeah. Technically the French phrase, this is me showing my foreign languages, major, minor stuff from college. Technically it's omelette au fromage.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah. French word for egg. Well done, crafty fellow. But we're not here to talk French eggs, I don't think. We're here to talk to Heather Antos. She's an editor over at Marvel Comics. She edits, honest to God, the entire Marvel Star Wars line, which is constantly, that's one of the most consistent in terms of quality and visibility lines in comics today. She also edits she announces it here, the Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows series. And she also edits a little book. Well, also Deadpool vs. Old Man Logan. We just had Declan on. But she's really here to talk about the Unbelievable Gwenpool, which, out in comic book stores now, and you can get the layest issue out on Wednesday, January 3rd, which kind of kicks off the grand finale for that series because, unfortunately, that series is coming to a close. But you can get all the trades. You can get all the issues. It's been a fantastic series. It really has. It's kind of this love letter to the entire Marvel universe through the eyes of the titular aesthetic Gwenpool. But you know what? Let's let Heather talk about it. And joining us this week, we have Heather Antos. She's editor over at Marvel Comics. She edits really all the Star Wars books. She edits Gwenpool. She edited Not Brand Ek. It's quite prolific what she's done over at Marvel in the last couple months and years. And Heather, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This should be fun.
Usually. Yeah. So
I say should be. I don't want to hold. I don't want to I don't want to give you any pressure or anything like that. So,
what is the most? Damn. What is the most pressured we've been in an interview? I know we almost collectively lost our shit when Joe Kelly came on the week Deadpool came out.
Oh man, the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I remember, who was it who announced they were doing a Judge Dredd title?
That was John Layman.
John Layman broke the news that he was doing the Alien vs. Predator vs. Judge Dredd, and we all let out a harmonized, oh, shit.
We're really good at that.
Yeah.
Oh, shitting in unison.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
yeah. So, the obviously Gwenpool's got the January 2nd. We've got Volume 4. Beyond the Fourth Wall, and January 10th, we have issue 24, which kicks off the next arc of Gwenpool. But let's go ahead and start at the beginning first. How did you get the nod to edit the ongoing adventures of Gwenpool, the unbelievable Gwenpool?
Really, I just fought for it. So when Gwen first came about, it was for that variant cover program, right? A few years ago, They did this month of just Gwen Stacy version of all these characters, and so they did a Gwen Stacy Deadpool mashup. Came up with Gwenpool, and it hit the stands, and right away there was this right away people were cosplaying her. It was insane. There was fan art. That weekend, a group of people were cosplaying her at some sort of Comic-Con. She just kind of went viral unexpectedly. And so Marvel was like, all right, so apparently this is a thing. Let's make a book. And so there was a lot of talks that were to be had about how to do her because of the Gwen Stacy and the Spider-Man rights of it all, the Deadpool and the Fox rights, X-Men rights of it all. How do we create her so she's a Marvel-owned character? There's a lot of complications in it, but they did approach Jordan and I first as being the Deadpool office. She did appear in our book. She's a pool. We want her, they wanted her to kind of fit into that pool realm of things. And so Jordan and I had a lot of conflicting ideas on how to tackle her, but one thing we did agree on was who we wanted to approach with it. And I think it was just in those like initial first meetings, Chris Hastings and I, like, we really just like kind of got a good groove with each other. And so when it came time to like officially like put the nail in the coffin of who's heading it, I kind of like won that battle, I guess.
Many Bothans died.
What?
Many Bothans died in that battle.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just natural.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
But so what is it about, one of the most striking things about Gwen is that, true to her pool form, she can break the fourth wall, as if the title of the, the fourth volume is a dead giveaway. But at the same time, she's a dyed-in-the-wool comic book fan. Where do you, was that kind of an energy and idea that had come from you and Chris and had been there from the beginning?
So the original editorial like dictate that we got was they did want her to be, Gwen Stacy from another universe, kind of in the same vein as what Spider-Gwen is. They just wanted the Spider-Gwen version of Deadpool, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And for me and Chris, that was kind of like, well, you're beating a dead horse almost. Like, that's already been done. And we've already seen like Lady Deadpool. What can we do that's different? And Chris is the one who came up with she's from our world and she is a comic book fan. And what would a comic book fan do if they one day woke up in the Marvel universe? And so how that grew was we ended up, throughout the past 2 years that we've been working on her, have had a lot of interesting conversations of, well, if you're a fan of comic books, and the universe that you're in, and how comic books work, how can you use that to your advantage, and how does that change the game for you? And, in the Marvel universe, everyone gets their powers from, like Tony Stark builds a suit, or, you are an Inhuman and you have the Terrigen cloud, or you're a mutant and you have these, this great DNA, or you're Peter and you get bitten by this radioactive spider. Well, Gwen's power is literally her knowledge of how the universe works. And that's been a super fun challenge for us to not only grow as she realizes what else she can do, but also keep grounded without it getting like too wacky and too bizarre. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's always fun, the conversations that Chris and I have, where we said like, well, what can we do now? And how does this change things? But at the same time, how doesn't it change things, and how does it complicate her life more? And it's what makes her truly unique and different than pretty much any other character that I've ever seen in comic books.
Would you say that power source is what sets her apart? Because there's other kind of characters in the Marvel universe, in the Marvel comic verse, that have that fanboyish kind of, or fangirlish, or unisex fan background.
Gender neutral fan.
Gender neutral fans. Kamala Khan's is a fan. Phil Coulson's is a fan. In a degree, Peter Parker was a fan of certainly Cap. But yeah, is that what you would say sets Gwen apart from those kind of characters?
Oh, for sure. I mean, like Kamala and Phil Coulson, these guys, Kamala being like such a huge fan of Carol Danvers, and Phil just being a fan of all the Avengers and all of this. Like to them, the Avengers are celebrities, right? They're like us, that girl that just looks up to and loves Taylor Swift, or everyone who looks up to the sports heroes, right? Mm-hmm. So they're real people to them. I can't put a comparison to it. Like I don't know. Like how would you feel if like one day you woke up in a world and like Superman was legit real?
I've been waiting for that for years. Really.
I'd cry.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that.
Exactly. Like it's. I don't know if I could put words to it, because obviously that's something that I have not experienced. And so it's been fun seeing how Gwen reacts to the different characters when she meets them. Like one of my favorites still to this day is I believe it was issue 2 where she battles Thor, Jane Foster, and she literally shouts Jane's name. And which is a normal thing to do as a person because that's your name, but here you're in a world where like that's the biggest weapon against her is her name. And yeah, like Gwen's relationship with these people and these heroes is definitely what makes her special and what makes her different. There's literally no one else in the universe that has the same sort of relationship with their surrounding that Gwen does.
I mean, you've got her against perhaps the most premier villain in the entire Marvel Comics universe with the most recent issue 23, out on stands now. So yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely, I mean, as a fan herself, there's both got to be an intimidation and like oh shit, I'm fighting Dr. Doom right now.
Yeah, I can't imagine like what that would be. Well, first of all, like meeting Dr. Doom and then realizing like, oh shit, what do you mean you're a good guy now? What's with this armor? You know, this is not Dr. Doom. Who's retconning you? Comics, you know, screw comics. What are they up to? But then also, yeah, this is like, you know, us mere mortals going up. Well, I'm going to declare war against Genghis Khan. You know, that's a scary, scary thing. But at the same time, Gwen also knows that she is in a comic book and it's her comic book. So they're not going to kill her off in her comic book, right? That doesn't make sense.
It didn't work out for Captain Marvel.
Yeah, well. These are modern times. No, but yeah, it's a weird thing where she has total control of her own existence in a way, because she can literally control the planes of the universe, but at the same time she doesn't quite grasp that, or is maybe even afraid of it in a way.
Kind of, she doesn't want to, you know, as a fan herself, she doesn't want to upset the apple cart that she grew up loving.
Yeah, I mean, you see what happened with her in Beyond the Fourth Wall, and where she got too comfortable with the powers and became that super villain, and took advantage of it and ended up hurting people that she cared about, because she just decided the entire comic book existence was a joke. And, you know, hopefully she learned from that, as we see. But yeah, she's fighting so hard to not be what everyone wants her to be, that I think is something that is extremely relatable just as people. That it makes me curious to see, you know, where she's going, and as she continues to grow in the comic book universe.
You know, speaking of growth, you've been working with, you know, Chris Hastings on the series for, you know, since its inception, really. How would you say your collaborative process with him has been, and how has that grown over the years?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely hasn't been as traditional as say, like, you know, the Star Wars books that I work on or the Deadpool ones that I work on. Part of that being that Chris just lives in Brooklyn, so it's just a lot easier for us to get together. But every single arc with Gwenpool, we have this crappy little diner that we go to near the Marvel offices. And I always go and get a grilled cheese, and he always gets an omelet, and we just sit and talk about what the next arc of Gwen is going to be. And it's just literally as simple as, like, he's like, well, I was thinking, you know, we would experiment with her powers more. Or for me, I'd go to him and be like, all right, so Marvel's doing this big legacy push. Like, how can we tie into that? What do you think of putting her up against a classic villain? And it's just us shooting the shit and brainstorming and coming up with jokes right on the spot. And after we have our lunch, get back to the desk, and Chris types up a quick paragraph just recanting everything we just had at lunch, and then a week or two later I have the first script. It's been a very smooth process, I think, mostly because Chris and I and Guri Hiru even the both the ladies of Guri Hiru and their translator Aki, like everyone just, it's like we're in hive mind almost with Gwen. I've never had a project where I had to give as few notes to make sure everyone's on the same page. We all are just like in sync, and it's been so much fun. Even with Clayton Cole's on letters, like everyone brings so much of Gwen's spirit in what they do, and it's I don't know, it's magic, this book.
Lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
This kind of spoiled you on everything else. It's like, why can't it all be like this natural and organic?
Oh man, I wish, right?
So I mean, with this upcoming arc again out, starting up on, well, I guess it technically started with Doctor Doom, but I mean, well, it'll be collected as such. But with issue 24 coming out on January 10th, you've got this upcoming arc that Gwen is literally going down kind of like a bucket list, kind of like a checklist of all the things she wants to do in the Marvel Universe. Without giving the game away, what are some of those things that we can expect?
Well, without giving the game away, I will say, we've seen one possible future for Gwen, right? This evil version that Gwen ultimately defeated simply by just deciding she wasn't going to be evil. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other future options out there. It wasn't like Gwen had, well, evil Gwen or not evil Gwen. Like there's, as we all know with all our lovely time travel movies, there's every decision we make will ultimately affect 20,000 million different futures. And that's something that Gwen is becoming aware of. And she has to make choices that are ultimately not only going to affect her future, but also the future of those that she's come to care about, including Batroc and Sarah and Cecil. And that's a heavy responsibility that's weighing on her. And, she's realizing that her decisions are going to ultimately affect the rest of these guys, not only their lives, but their mere existence in comics.
I mean, hopefully nothing bad happens to Batroc. He's a Frenchman that just literally just jumps around. Yeah. And he's somehow
speaking of him, it's issue 24 is quite literally a Gwen and Batroc team up, so you'll get plenty of him.
I always like that during his Cap run, Brubaker somehow made Batroc seem like a badass. I was like, and then in the movies he's like an MMA fighter, and I was like, okay, well played. So, I mean, you were mentioning there's kind of this personal connection that you've got with Gwen. There's certainly a kind of a creative ownership to it. That there's a connection there. How fun is for the listeners that don't know? Occasionally, you'll take to Twitter answering questions as Miss Gwendolyn Poole, and what would you say where does that connection come from, and what do you think is just the appeal of Gwen that made her go viral in the first place?
She's a comic fan, right? Like no matter what, whether you are a fan of Gwenpool or whether you roll your eyes and think she's just a marketing ploy, like she's a comic book fan like every single one of us, and there's something that's so relatable to that, to shocker, comic fans, reading these books and wishing we could escape to this world where these things are real and just forget about the humdrum and drama of our boring lives, and let's put on a cape and have superpowers and hang out with Spider-Man because we can. Who legitimately doesn't want that? And yeah, so it's been an in-joke with the fans for a couple years now that I am the real life version of Gwenpool. And this just happened to start because when Gwenpool came out, me and her had the same hairstyle, the blonde with pink. Sure. It was kind of a weird coincidence. It wasn't on purpose. It was the thing that I had wanted to do, and I think Chris's wife had the same hairstyle at the same time, and he wrote it into the script. Didn't realize I had already dyed my hair like that. Didn't realize it was going to be in the script, and it was kind of this weird coincidence. But yeah, so when the comics came out and people were starting like, oh my gosh, are you Gwenpool? Are you Gwenpool? I was already writing the recaps for the book, that it just became a fun thing to hop on Twitter because it makes sense almost. She's from our universe, so she would have Twitter. She would know how to use Twitter. And this is her attempt to communicate with the fans, and she writes back on her own fan mail. If you write into Marvel, she'll answer your fan mail. I've written to parents' kids have written to me, and I've written to their kids as Gwenpool and sent stuff, and it's I don't know, it's been super fun. There's definitely a part of her personality and me that I feel are very similar. Mm-hmm. I also think she's a lot more impulsive than I am. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something that's so carefree and lovable about Gwen that I don't see how anyone could not like her.
Kind of like this ray of sunshine. And there's also, like you were saying, there is that wish fulfillment. Yeah. It's like the entire reason like DC Universe Online exists.
Yeah.
And then still like nobody played it. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean,
I still have a DCU account.
Yeah, I got one too.
Okay.
It's.
You want to play after this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
It's such a just great idea though for a comic. I mean, it really is, because like like you were saying, I mean, on the show multiple times we've all been like, hey, what if we talk to Frank Castle? I don't know how great that'd go, but but hopefully
just
nice.
Give him a hug,
yeah.
Man. That's all he needs.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was Becky, Cloonan that said it the best. He was just like, he just goes about his day, like the less human interaction, the best.
Yeah. Well, the issue 13 that I love so much that she did was like a perfect example where like he wants to get his gun back and he goes up to that kid and he's like, stay in school.
I love that. Oh yeah.
It's one of my all-time favorite comics of that run. It's just spending a day with Frank. But I mean, like, yeah, it's just that wish fulfillment.
The prose novel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my day with Frank. It's
Fridays with Frank.
It's such a the wish fulfillment. It's like you said, with every comic fan thinks that. Every comic fan reads the comic. I mean, and wonders what it'd be like, because we'd all be like Chris Farley in that SNL skit, just like,
the Paul McCartney
hey,
one?
remember that time where you saved the universe? Remember that time? But like, it works so well for a comic, and it's super endearing for a character and for the readers to place themselves in that. It's such a good idea for a book.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it definitely makes you think, like, what would you do if you were in her position? Would you be her and like, well, I guess I'm here, I'm gonna put on a superhero costume, or would you be Teddy and try and find some normalcy? And you can't really blame him, mm-hmm. right? But it definitely makes you think. And I honestly don't know what I would do if I woke up in another universe and there were people flying around in capes and aliens trying to attack New York City every other day. I don't know.
Yeah. It's always New York that gets it.
Yeah.
It is. It is always New York.
Yeah, it's mainly, you're mentioning both you and Chris live in the outer boroughs. I think you'll be fine because it's always almost a Manhattan. So you should.
It's true. Yeah. That is true. It's always, Chrysler Building, Empire State Building, Central Park.
Stay at a Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
Yep. That's true. That's true.
There was that Morbius series where he's like in Brownsville, I think. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting place for Michael to take up whatever his vampiric stuff is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those, I want to go back and see who wrote it and see like, well, maybe they lived there, Yeah.
Why all the Brownsville hate? But so just to change gears real quick, speaking of fans becoming, working in the industry and that sort of thing, how does it feel to like edit Star Wars, like across the board?
It's so weird. It's like, I've been doing it for almost 3 years now, and I still all the time I have moments where I'm just like, I can't believe I'm paid to do this. I've been such a hardcore Star Wars fan my entire life, and now it's all the things I used to do sitting around with my friends, except I get paid for it, and it counts, and it affects the universe, and people around the world get to partake in it. Mm-hmm. And that's the coolest thing, right? That's what we all want as fans, is to share our fandom with the rest of the world. And it's the most indescribable thing. Just this past year, I got to get the go-ahead to work on a book starring my favorite character that, as of a few years ago was considered no longer canon. And I get to work on his first comic book form, and it's just the coolest thing. Every day is a pinch me moment. Every time I get to go to Lucasfilm, every time I get to have a conversation with Story Group, every time I get new art, or even just sitting and brainstorming with Jason and Charles and Kieran, it's just so much fun.
You were mentioning, I think the mini series has been announced at this point. You're talking about Admiral Thrawn, aren't you?
Heck yeah, I am.
Get that heir to the Empire and all that, all the jazz. But yeah,
yeah.
I mean, because I'm thinking the only time he showed up in like post, I guess what they're calling it, Legends now, was it just Rebels at this point?
Yeah, well, he's been in Rebels, and he had the novel. Tim Zahn, who wrote the original Heir to the Empire trilogy, when they announced his appearance in Rebels, they also announced this new novel that Tim is doing, and they actually just announced the sequel to the novel that comes out next year. So, I mean, Thrawn is back, and Thrawn is here to stay, and I'm working on his comic, and it's the most amazing thing in the world.
Yeah, I actually just recently finished reading the new novel. It's pretty good.
It's really good. It is definitely one of, and not just saying it because I'm biased and I'm obsessed with Thrawn, but it is legitimately one of my favorite novels of the new canon. I almost feel guilty about it because there's so many like fan favorite characters from the EU that aren't coming back. That like the fact that I get my favorite one and then I get to work on a book with my favorite one is almost too good to be true. But yeah, it's great.
I've seen some of the preview pages. We've got a Thrawn that uses condition. It's the sexy Thrawn that we all knew was possible, and now we have.
Yeah. It's funny actually. At New York Comic Con, I was sitting with Matt Martin from Story Group, and we were talking about that moment where Thrawn had been on this planet in exile, and so what is he going to look like? And well, obviously he's been there for a few years, so you see, his clothes have been kind of like worn and torn, and he's got to have long, shaggy hair. And we had a conversation discussing whether or not Chiss grew facial hair, and it's moments like that where I'm like, this is legitimately a conversation I'm having for my job, whether this non-existent alien creature can grow facial hair. This is my life. I wouldn't change it for anything.
Living the dream. So, Heather, something we ask everybody that comes on the show. What are you currently geeking out over?
Two things. We were talking a little bit about it before. PUBG. I'm obsessed with PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds video game. I've logged probably close to 600 hours since May playing this game.
Not bad.
I literally bought a new computer just to play this video game that is still in early access.
I think you got your money's worth.
I hope to God, because I dropped like $1,300 on a new computer. But yeah, like I said, I play like 4 or 5 hours every day of this game. I'm obsessed. It's so much fun. But on the other hand, something a little more recent, I'm so obsessed with Runaways, the TV show. Have you guys watched it yet?
I don't have Hulu. You guys have Hulu.
Yeah, Hulu keeps recommending it to me, but I'm really trying to soldier through a rewatch of Futurama that I'm about halfway through.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
It is understandable. I mean, all the the first season isn't completely released yet. They've only released up to five issues, five episodes. So hopefully by the time you finish Futurama, the entire first season will be out. But it's so good. I was so nervous because, Runaways is one of those staple books in the Marvel Universe. And it's so beloved that it could be so easy to get it wrong. And even with the changes that they're making, it's so good and it's so right. And I'm so excited to see where it goes. I haven't felt this excited about Runaways since I've read the first volume.
Oh, the Brian K. Vaughan, yeah.
That was a really good volume.
And I mean, Hulu's $8 a month, so it's worth it. Get it, watch Runaways, and geek out like me.
11 for me because I springed for no commercials.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I didn't. I'm cheap.
Hoity-toity, Chris.
I know, right?
Damn. I mean, that's always kind of because we're fresh off the Punisher and everything. We've all certainly seen, without naming things specifically, Swamp Thing, comic titles that have been adapted that have not gone.
Oh, the Wes Craven Swamp Thing?
Yeah.
I forgot that existed.
I think so did Wes Craven.
Yeah.
Hey, remember that Nick Cage Superman movie that almost happened with Tim Burton?
God, yeah.
Yeah, I have the documentary about why it didn't happen.
Oh, Superman Lives, yeah.
Yeah.
Or the
Yeah.
death
Well,
of
do you
Superman.
I've never watched it.
Oh, it's really good.
It's really
It
fascinating.
made me actually want to see that Nick Cage Superman movie,
Yeah.
which is a big feat because I remember as soon as I heard they had said Nick Cage to be Superman, I was like, fuck that. But like now, after watching that documentary, I'm like, man.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, the reason I think when you watch the documentary is because it's such a well-made documentary that you're like, oh, this could totally work. It's
Is it
because
better than Becoming Bond?
well, yeah. But like the reason I think it works so well is because that movie never happened, and so
yeah.
we're able to direct like, oh, he comes back in the suit and this that.
Of course it'll be awesome.
It comes to be awesome, and like I love Nick Cage and I love Superman, but sometimes you put two things together and it doesn't work. But I remember like I would love because that's great thing about comics too is you could they did like the Lost Two-Face Batman 66 in a comic book form. I would love for them to do like the Nick Cage Superman in comic book form.
I heard that they wanted to.
Yeah,
I remember every time we talked to Kyle Higgins, we're like, yo,
Batman 89.
89.
Yeah. I bug the hell out of him. Every time I see him, he probably is like, Jesus Christ.
It's the Batman 89 kid.
Kyle's one of my good friends. Now
Yeah.
I'm literally texting
Yes.
him right now.
Yes.
Tell him the kids that talk to him at the Image booth because we work with Image. I work on the magazine, and Jake and I will work at the booth at all the shows. Like we'll be at Emerald City in 3 months, but every time Kyle swings by the booth,
I'm like, remember that scene in Batman 89?
And he's like, God,
It's just my. I mean, that to me is
the
just
movie's almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
Get over it.
Well, that's yeah. That's the reason. Like, I love Batman. I think just comics in general. Because watching that as a little kid, I was like, oh my God,
Yeah,
this is
I don't-
the craziest thing in the world.
yeah, I'd be flattered if you remember the Image kids that bother him about
yeah.
about fucking Batman every time. He's like, I haven't worked it for Well, I guess he's got the New Order right now.
He has Nightwing New Order right now, which
Yeah.
is a really good book. I'm quite enjoying that.
There's no. I mean, him and Dick. Like, I don't mean that. I know you're looking at me funny when
I'm not looking at
Dick
anybody
Grayson.
funny. Yeah. I know who Nightwing is.
Yeah, thank you. But the I always thought he had a really. I mean, he moved him to Chicago for fuck's
Are you
sake.
saying he's a big dick lover? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what he's
Ma-
saying.
Okay.
It could,
Okay.
it could be all shapes and sizes. We don't really know.
Nightwing, Robin.
Kyle, if you're listening, I'm sorry and I love you.
But yeah, all right. Well, before we return you to the wilds of New York City, is there anything else you'd like to plug while we got you on?
I mean, Gwenpool, obviously, and check out the Star Wars comics if you haven't yet. I truly believe there's a Star Wars series that we've done out there for you. They're not just all lightsaber battles in space. We've definitely tackled different genres and lots of different characters. And the movie's about to come out, so get on board, hop on the train. They're great.
Jake, you were saying your favorite of the Star Wars books was Chewbacca?
Oh, I thought Chewbacca was freaking
The Jerry
brilliant.
Duggan,
Yeah. And
Jerry and Phil, that book was beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. And like and also the Vader stuff too, because obviously we're not going to
Both
be
volumes of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we're not going to be seeing more Vader in the episode, the movies, because he's long dead. But I think it's a credit to you, Heather, and all the team there is like you all helped change and help me see this character I love so much that I've been reading about and watching for years and years. But now I go back and watch Empire Strikes Back totally differently now because of the Vader stuff, and like the moment where he finds out he has a son. Like we never saw that in the movies.
Yeah,
and
that's one of my favorite moments that we got to do. Yeah,
I mean that is like goosebump central. I mean like that was absolutely amazing. And just like all the little touches like that with like I'm such a Vader nerd, so anything Vader, and it's great because that character's still alive. Thanks to those comic books, and we're getting new stories with him, and it's just it's so much fun.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, and on that too, like getting to do the stuff that we're doing with Charles right now with the new run. When I remember reading that first script, and that first scene takes place, still during Revenge of the Sith, and Charles writes Vader force choking Palpatine, and like right away, his first move is like, I'm gonna attack the Emperor, and I'm just like, there's no way Lucasfilm will let us do this, and then they did, and just getting to do these little things like what we're currently doing right now, getting to see Jocasta Nu find out that Anakin is Darth Vader. Spoiler, it's on sale today, so you should have read it by now. It's so much fun getting to do this and explore this iconic character who's been around for 40 years, and we're still finding new stories to tell. And impacting the overall picture, and it's such a privilege, and I'm so excited that people, even after 3 years, are still enjoying the comics just as much. It just makes me even more excited to see what we get to do in the future, not only with these characters but with the new characters that are coming out too.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Do you have any? You mentioned Gwenpool and the Star Wars stuff. Do you have any books outside of those? Because again, you had just done Not Brain Ek, where everybody's dabbing on the cover. Here's a question: Is Saiyaman the guy that invented the dab?
I have no idea.
Well, I know the dab started coming into prominence because of Cam Newton.
Well, yeah, but Saiyaman's from Dragon Ball Z, and that was like early 90s.
And he definitely hit that pose.
He definitely did.
Oh.
And I think even the Ginyu Force.
Ginyu Force has these weird, they form like a flying V.
I'm just saying, I swear that they've hit that. And that's a parody of like the Power Rangers.
The Sentai stuff,
yeah, more specifically.
To tie it to Kyle Higgins a little more.
Yeah.
So maybe the Sentai.
89.
Yeah, we need that. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the first
bring
time
up a different movie next time we talk to Kyle.
First time I ever saw it was the Dark Knight Returns. Superman.
Oh yeah, I have the. That's right. I have the
And,
the Superman statue by Frank Miller, and it looks like he's dabbing.
Oh,
So I will say Frank Miller invented the dab just for
There
fun
you go.
okay.
because he's the greatest.
But yeah, to get back to my question before we got on the dab tangent.
Sorry.
Do you have anything else that you're looking that you got coming out?
Yeah, I recently just took over editorial duties on Amazing Spider-Man: Renew Your Vows. Issue 13 was my first issue. It came out a couple weeks ago, and so basically it's an alternate universe where MJ and Peter stayed married, and they had little Annie Mae, and she's a superhero too, and they're a superhero family doing superhero things. But Annie's now in high school. And so she's the same age that Peter was when Peter first got his powers. Only difference is she's been doing it her entire life. And both her parents happen to be superheroes. And so there's a lot of that familial drama that you get. Annie trying to figure out who she is on her own as a superhero and just as a person in general. Outside of her family, and there's a lot of self-exploration going on in that, and we get to play with some of the classic villains. We introduced the Lizard in our first issue, and there's even more sinister things coming, so check it out if you haven't.
Hopefully 6 sinister things come.
Remember when Mark Miller was like the Sinister 12, and I'm like, okay. like I didn't like I
Double the
didn't
trouble.
like I didn't mind, but at the same time I was like, fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, there's Vulture.
You weren't wowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had
Need that
I-
Marvel alliteration, man.
Yeah, I still have the it needs the that's the thing. But yeah, so Heather, thanks again for coming on. And again, the fourth volume of Gwenpool, the Unbelievable Gwenpool, will be out in comic book stores everywhere on January 2nd, and you can get issue 24 on Wednesday, January 10th. In addition to, I guess, all the Star Wars books.
Oh, yeah.
and Amazing Spider-Man: Renew Your Vows. Heather, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. This was so much fun. We'll have to do it again.
yeah.
Thanks again to Heather for coming on the show. That was a pleasant chat. And we were talking to her off mic, and she's like, maybe I could come back on after Last Jedi comes out. Guess what just came out?
Jumanji.
That's yes, you're right. At the time we're recording this, Jumanji was released today. I'll see it eventually.
I almost saw it today, but the movie pass that I have doesn't let you see 3D movies, and the 3D times were the only ones that had enough time between when I was free and would get out before we started recording. So unfortunately, I do not have a Jumanji review for us today.
But we do kind of have we can talk about The Last Jedi.
We can.
I think.
I imagine by now most of our listeners have seen it.
Yeah, also, spoilers, if you're not here to listen to The Last Jedi plot points, maybe stop listening at this point.
Yeah.
Because we're going to really I think we're going to dig into it. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. No, actually, I enjoyed The Last Jedi. I enjoyed it a lot. It's basically Dunkirk in space, in the sense that it's like the Resistance trying to mount their evacuation from their base and try to get to, a safe port, being pursued by the First Order. What I love about this film is that it is very clear, very clearly a conscious subversion of expectation. Because the characters, I think we've been bred, not just by Star Wars, but by blockbuster films in general, to think that characters are going to... They're flawless.
Yeah.
Everything they do, it's going to go off like Ocean's 11. Everything goes according to plan.
Or even if they do...
Or even Ocean's 13.
Yeah. But not Logan Lucky.
What The Last Jedi does is make consequence exist in the world of Star Wars again. Because these characters fuck up. They have to live with the consequences of their actions. And when the scales are this big, those are some big consequences. And I really like that. They're, people that you think that somebody like Poe Dameron's going to be cocky and cool and disobey orders and everything's going to work out fine. It doesn't always
He
work
ends up
out.
Killing half the Resistance in the opening scene.
Certainly their entire bomber squadron.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to Snap, Wexley, and the other dudes from Black Squadron that we see at the end of Force Awakens? I don't think they're there.
They probably exploded in the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh,
With
okay.
I'm assuming. I don't know.
Yeah.
The thing with this movie is, and I hope this isn't a new trend, but like the trend where it's like the villain gets caught on purpose, that started with The Dark Knight. I hope the new trend isn't let's burn it all down, and because like Thor Ragnarok is a movie that broke the mold and totally changed the game, and it worked.
It still kept the tone light.
Yeah. The Last Jedi it does the same kind of thing where it's like, let's tear it all down kind of thing. Burn the past, kill the past, like Kylo Ren says. I think, I've been saying it since day one, like be bold is a great, kind of thing to live by with making movies and music and choices and acting and whatnot. But part of the reason not everyone goes for be bold is because if it doesn't work, that could be a problem.
Yeah, it's not a guaranteed win, and if you lose, you lose big.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, this movie didn't lose big, but I was not a fan really of this movie. And I think a huge part of it is it got lost in its own destruction of itself, deconstruction of itself too. Because like Sam was saying, it's all these characters fail left and right, but at the end of the day, what did we learn? What did the characters learn? I think the only sane character in this movie by far is Kylo Ren.
Not Leia?
I I guess Leia, but like no, because her thing was I don't understand why they kept plans from Poe Dameron.
Yeah.
Well, in Leia's case, she's like,
Well, no, Leia's because she's knocked out. But like, why?
But by the time she comes back at the end, it's pretty clear that it was all part of her plan all along.
Yeah, and I don't understand why. Like when Poe was like, "You're under arrest, motherfucker. I'm gonna do it." They're like, "Stop. We have a plan.
Yeah,
this is the plan."
Come on, Laura Dern. You saved an island from dinosaurs. You can handle like.
Oh, the dinosaurs are still there.
Yeah,
you saved people on that island from dinosaurs killing them. But you can give Poe a little bit to let him know that there is some thought going beyond.
Though she goes out like a goddamn champion.
Yeah, she does.
Pretty freaking awesome. And the sound cutting out was the perfect touch. Oh, so good.
I that was the noise I made when that happened in the movie.
Everyone around you in the theater just kind of like,
handing me a napkin.
Yeah. Mr. Nolan.
Exactly. No, that was that should be the like not the main poster because it gives too much away, but like that's like the Mondo poster that comes out in like 10 years.
That was great.
Just like that shot.
That's the one perfect shot.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of like the cinematography. Say obviously, Jake, you're maybe not as warm to the film.
Well, like I said, I didn't hate it, and I'm not. You're
not signing any petitions.
I'm not going to tear. I'm not going fucking nuts. Like, oh, it ruined it. Because it's just I didn't like it that much. Fine. Yeah. It's at the end of the day, still going to see every other Star Wars movie. You're
still going to buy this movie, aren't you?
Still, yeah. I mean, there's not like a bunch of special editions I have to wait for to release the original. But yeah, I'll buy it because, like I said, there's some stuff in here that I generally love. There's some moments in here that I really, really love.
You got Yoda.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We got Yoda.
He was there. Yeah.
I was genuinely shocked when Yoda popped up.
I was too. I didn't expect it to happen.
Fuck.
Jake and I had a debrief after I saw it because you saw it days before I did, both of you.
Yeah.
And
we saw it at almost the exact same time, Jake.
Yeah, I felt your presence like Kylo Ren and Rey.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Chris passed the popcorn. Just popcorn started falling
and
from
then
the sky.
And then we just held hands.
Yeah.
And then Luke Skywalker barged in and forced
it.
Yeah. I remember, you and I were kind of like exchanging messages the night after or the morning after or whatever. Ooh. And
Hey now!
Yeah, this is a family-friendly podcast, says the man that says fuck every other word on the show. You were just like, yo, when Yoda appeared, I gasped like a dickhead.
I did, yeah. I gasped pretty loud because I was like, it's Yoda, man. Like, everyone loves Yoda.
And did you roll a tear?
Oh, my God. I didn't just roll a tear, son.
Tears.
The scene when Luke boards the Millennium Falcon and he's like, R2 wakes up because I kind of was like, I just assumed he was like around. I was like, oh, he's like passed out. So he wakes up and Luke does this whole like, R2, like I'm not leaving. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can say. And it goes to the moment when R2 plays Leia's message from A New Hope. The help me Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. And that just fucking hit me like a ton of bricks, man. Because what it did was it immediately took me back to that feeling the first time I ever watched A New Hope. And that was like so overwhelming. And that stuck with me for like scenes after. I couldn't like shake it. I was like, God damn. So like whatever negative I have to say about that movie, like about the movie or I didn't like this or that being in there and giving me that moment for a couple of minutes was fucking amazing. That was such a great, like perfect little scene and a perfect way to kind of do, quote unquote Easter egg or, this or that for it. It was done so well. It wasn't heavy handed. It wasn't like thrown in there for no reason.
It didn't feel forced.
No, it yeah, nice. It it worked totally. I thought that was so freaking well done. I mean, for me, the best part of the movie. I mean, like that was it.
Not the porgs.
No, the porgs were fine. Like they were inconsequential. They weren't really. They
were a cute thing for something for Chewbacca to do while they were on the planet.
Octo.
Hunt
for Red October.
Oh, Octo Gesundheit.
This show's terrible.
It is the worst show. We have so many downloads.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for
Yeah.
listening and streaming.
I will say
I appreciate the YouTube comments.
yeah, they're nice. All y'all can have your porgs. I want one of those crystal foxes.
Well, see, the thing is, the crystal foxes, you take them out of the movie and the resistance dies.
Yes.
You take the porgs out of the movie, you just got a couple funny scenes you lose.
Mhm.
Cute scenes.
Chewbacca gets to eat meat on planet what was it? Octo. Yeah.
Yeah, that scene was. I did enjoy that scene.
Yeah.
The
And like I said, Rey's parents being nobodies, no problem with that.
I loved that.
That was
That's
one
one of my favorite
That
parts
was
of
great.
the movie.
Snoke getting cut in half, that's great. So I don't know
that's
where
my favorite action scene in the movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's not that many great action scenes, but like, well, there's not. I mean, what the beginning.
The beginning is awesome. It's basically Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, the beginning's great with action.
Honestly, the entire movie. There's a level in Rogue Squadron 2 on the GameCube where you're escorting the transports off Yavin 4.
Yeah,
That's basically this movie.
but no, I think
I mean that glowingly.
Yeah, I think now that it's really more of him. Like the tossing the lightsaber just felt weird. Like that felt kind of like, fuck this shit. Like it.
Though he himself is like, look, there's a reason I went to the most remote planet.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with Luke being like crabby. That makes sense.
Hermity, if I
He kind of brought it on himself. Having that fleeting moment of doubt where he was going to kill his nephew.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which again, so no, I think my thing with episode 7 is that like, it's going to make watching episode 7 very interesting now, because
I didn't get that from the movie. I honestly don't know where you're pulling that from, that it like was shitting on episode 7.
Shitting on episode 7 sounds way too harsh. But I think its idea was, we're going to take a crazy turn with everything that was expected from episode 7. To the point almost of its detriment.
Like it's almost too much by design.
Yeah.
That tries to divorce itself.
It's
from
like,
it all.
well, what we'll do is none of it. I think that was it. It's shitting on it's too harsh of language. Pooping on it. No, yeah.
I can see like taking, going a direction that was not expected.
Yeah,
I can agree with that.
I appreciate that for the movie. I just overall I wasn't like in love with that being its kind of mantra.
I will say with how like in the moment, going back to specifically tossing the lightsaber, because that is a big deal, because it's like the first thing that we see Luke do, especially with like how we later find out how he's feeling and stuff like that. I think more of a reverent, like just dropping it to the side or something like that probably would have been more accurate for where the character was at that point, whereas like tossing it over the shoulder, I feel was like kind of more played for laughs.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
because
too,
there was a kind of like a nervous chuckle that went through my theater when I saw it. Like
looking around.
What?
But also, I think to be fair, to give the movie a little credit, like there was so much hype that it was damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah,
I do think that this movie, and I'm the most defensive of it. Apparently, like I'm its biggest proponent. I would argue, is I think it would fare better under repeat viewings.
I can see that
once you've recalibrated expectation.
Probably.
My big thing for as a Star Wars fan, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. As a like filmmaker in my own right, I have some issues with where they went ultimately with certain things. Like the biggest thing for me was Rose, almost in general, but specifically.
Oh, I love Kelly Marie Tran.
She was fine. I in general was too harsh. She was fine as like the sidekick to Finn throughout that B storyline, even though that B storyline ended up being useless.
By design.
By design, sure. But I understand like a good old fashioned wild goose chase. But like it fell flat, except for the whole like the hint that you're spreading the rebellion to like those kids, like that That's the only like redeeming thing that B story had, in my opinion. That, and also it set up a cool fight scene with Phasma, which I felt very cheated of in episode 7.
Yeah. Also does get cold cocked by Chewbacca.
Yeah, and I really hope that they find a way to make her survive that fall into a fiery pit. Because, hey, her armor can withstand a blaster shot. I feel like it can withstand a couple fires. The vacuum of space, maybe not. It depends on where she landed.
She just used the Force to fly back into the
Yeah,
ship.
exactly. She's fine. She's got chrome on her dome.
Chrome dome.
But
Exposed eye be damned.
yeah. Oh my God, they humanized her.
She's human.
Hey, speaking of Marvel Star Wars comics, that Captain Phasma miniseries.
Is it good? I need to check it out.
Pretty fucking good.
But getting back to Rose.
That's all fine. Let's talk about
Phasma, awesome. Marvel Comics, great. Rose, but like
She's
she's the way the implant, the fan implant.
She
or
is
whatever you wanna call
a
it.
bit more of a she's a POV character in that she's
Yeah.
our window into this world.
There you go.
But I mean, like, just her, like, someone going into the Star Wars world like this, and like how we would act. Like, we'd be freaking out at the freaking premiere.
Yeah.
I'd fucking break down in tears if I saw someone cosplaying as me.
Yeah.
So that yeah, but that scene, and then that line backdropped to like this whole movie's a failure, and it's like, we don't win by killing those we hate. We win by loving the ones
Saving
we
the
love,
ones
saving
we
the
love.
ones we love. As the battering ram cannons bursting down the door.
Yeah.
Now, granted, of course they don't die, but Laura Dern does the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And saves the day.
Yeah.
Well, she saves literally everybody else.
Yeah.
Yes, literally everybody else. Where Rose was willing to save one.
Also, you're also taking, again, everybody fucks up in this movie. You're taking one character's word
It's true.
as gospel.
She fucked up. so she just kept the theme going.
Yeah, I guess she kept the fuck up theme.
Yeah.
It's just that fuck up out of all of them felt the weirdest.
That's
your big quibble.
Yeah, that is, and to me it's a pretty big one, but it's still it's pretty much that and the fact that Lando wasn't the code breaker are like the two things that I have a problem with this movie. For the most part, I thoroughly enjoyed everything else, or at least the vast majority of the movie. Like, I loved Luke being a disillusioned hermit. I thought that was great. It made sense because like filling in my own like little half stories for what probably happened in between episodes 6 and 7 for him. Realizing that he wasn't up to snuff for training these kids. Like, sorry, it wasn't the Young Jedi Academy or whatever that book series was, where he successfully trains a whole slew of young Jedi. He fucked up. And he's dealing with that guilt.
It's a film full of regret and unresolved feelings, and nobody carries both of those things more.
Yeah.
In the entire film than Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
That's why I totally understand when, he's a curmudge.
Mm-hmm.
Curmudge makes sense. He's
and
no
that's-
Qui-Gon Jinn.
That's your I
love Qui-Gon Jinn. Let me tell you how much I love Qui-Gon Jinn wouldn't have flown a ship into another ship. He would have saved the day. I love Qui-Gon.
If you talk to our friend Joy,
Qui-Gon!
Friend of the show, Joy, because she was on one of the Reminiscent Evil shows.
Yes.
She is a bartender, and she has a drink called the Qui-Gon Gin. It's made with gin.
Okay.
I was going to say, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's made with
bourbon.
It's made with bathtub moonshine.
So, if
yeah,
you're a fan of failure, The Last Jedi is for you.
And disappointing, neckbeards that write their own movies and think that they're the best ones.
I'm gonna
get
burn
pissed
all
off.
my Star Wars toys. I'm gonna burn my Star Wars toys because I didn't like Luke was a hologram. I mean, I didn't like he was a hologram, but
Rey's supposed to be Luke's daughter.
Last one thing that Chris and I talked to you about real quick when we were driving back from getting something to eat. What
is your
is
name?
left. What is coming?
I have and
What is your
neither of
quest?
us could answer what is your name. We were like,
What
fuck.
are you excited for 9? What does 8 set up?
So, I think the Faint.
Success.
The Faint.
They're going to succeed in all fronts.
This is the Faint for me, or I think for most audiences, everybody thought that Snoke was going to fill the big bad role for the entire trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it was always going to be Luke. Sorry. Fuck.
That-
That's the Faint. It's Luke. No.
He's back and badder than ever.
It's an evil Force ghost.
Yeah. They have to bust him.
He ain't no Qui-Gon Jinn.
That's one of my
It
favorite.
was always you, Luke.
That was one of my favorite lines in Clone Wars, the original Clone Wars, not the CGI Clone Wars, where Luke and Obi-Wan or Anakin and Obi-Wan get into an. I'm just saying.
Boy, you fucking up.
Yeah, I'm fucking up.
You're just replacing everyone with Luke.
Yeah, Luke is everybody.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon Jinn? Nope.
Yeah.
It's Luke. Darth Maul? Don't think so. Luke.
Yeah. Hey, this episode's
Snoke was Luke all along.
this episode's all about failure.
We're never getting a Lucasfilm interview again after all this. Fuck. I tried, guys. There's a argument between Anakin and Obi-Wan, where he's just like, it boils over, and Anakin goes, "You're no Qui-Gon Jinn."
Fuck.
And that's like the low blow.
Shit.
But the things that I'm looking forward to in episode 9. It's it's going to be everybody rallying and it's the final battle. But the big thing is on a more personal level. We were meant to believe that Snoke was going to be the big bad. At the end of the day, the fight was always going to be between Rey and Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that. Because now they're both so far on their respective spectrums.
They
of the
got
Force.
so close in that, like, I will say the Empire's throne room scene was like perfect shit.
Yeah.
Great.
Perfect
Lovely.
shit.
And
Perfect
you know
shit.
what? At the end of the day,
God's favorite shit.
God's favorite shit. No, look, like at the end of the day, I'm always going to be in it for Star Wars. I'm always in it for Star Wars. I don't know what to say. Look, I just didn't like the movie that much. Who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next movie, it's fine. I'm not heartbroken and losing sleep over it.
And certainly not signing fan petitions.
Fuck. If you sign a fan petition for any reason, you are not Qui-Gon Jinn. Because everyone's favorite Jedi is Qui-Gon Jinn.
I thought you were a Kit Fisto man.
Kit Fisto does rule. I mean, he's pointless. But I will forever be great. Like I said,
I was so pissed in Revenge of the Sith when
he goes out like a bitch. I will forever be grateful to Episode 8 for the Episode 8 for me is a movie of small moments and big failure. And I don't necessarily mean that as like a dig because the more I think about it, I've had like a week or so to think about it. Like, it is really about like all these characters, like, in that Empire Strikes Back kind of mold. It is dark. This goes wrong kind of deal.
Well, if you think about it, not a whole hell of a lot goes wrong in Empire Strikes Back. I mean, they were holding action on Hoth.
They lose Hoth.
Well, they once they know they're found out, they're like, we have to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
The object was never to hold Hoth; it was to from then on to get the fuck off Hoth.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they would have liked to stayed on Hoth.
Well, yes, but that was
They had barely just settled in.
Yeah, the big fuck up is that Han trusts Lando.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is a rekindling of friendship built out of that, where it's left to be seen with DJ, where he's like, no, fuck it, money. They tried to be like, both sides are bad kind of thing, which I think
it's pretty clear.
Yeah,
which one's the bad
Yeah.
guy?
It's like showing him being like, they bought an X-wing. I'm like, so fucking what?
Yeah.
That didn't land particularly well, but movie's making a shit dick load of money.
Yeah.
Good dick shitload.
Mm-hmm. It's like 200,000.
It's the second behind
Yeah.
Force Awakens. For opening, at least in December, but it's like 200 some million. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
That's what it was.
you know, you can look at the end of the day with movies. You can disagree with movies. You can not like movies. Don't be a fucking asshole about it.
Yeah.
Don't be a dickhole.
It's just a movie.
And if someone
Use it use it to escape from the shitty world
Yeah.
that we're in right now.
yeah. So go see the Star Wars.
Let us know what you think, too, especially you YouTube commenters that leave us such nice things unless you're talking about the Beatles.
Hot take.
But
for anyone that wants to get into a dick measuring contest with me about Beatles trivia, to quote Harrison Ford, I don't care.
So yeah, looking forward to more Star Wars.
Yeah.
And
the Han Solo movie, is that's spring?
That's May.
Yeah.
May? Okay.
5 months, man.
That's yeah. Little surprised we didn't get a trailer for it
Me
in front
too.
of the Star Wars.
Too.
To be fair, they just finished the reshoots, in October?
They already have a trailer for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse or whatever it's called. And that comes out next Christmas.
That's animated.
You're animated.
Fucking right. You're fucking right.
And there's a very good chance all those shots are animated just for the trailer.
Sizzle reel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, this is what we're pitching to you.
Hey, look, it's Miles Morales. Cool.
He is cool.
I mean, I do like Miles Morales.
Yeah, love him.
And it promises to have a whole slew of Spider-Mens.
Noir.
Oh yeah, baby.
2099.
Oh yeah.
Does it have Spider-Gwen?
They should.
It
Damn
should.
it.
Yeah, they should.
It should, but yeah, I was just checking to see if it had been announced.
Let's give that Latour. We need to get him back on the show, too.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks again to Heather for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Unbelievable Gwenpool out in comic book stores. Latest issue comes out on, Wednesday, January. I was going to say October. January 3rd. You've got basically a Star Wars book, if not at least one every week at the rate Marvel pumps them out. And
Yeah.
You've got Kieran Gillen and Salvador LaRocca's Star Wars. You've got Charles Soule and Giuseppe Camuncoli's Darth Vader. Charles Soule and Phil Noto doing Poe Dameron, and as Heather teases as much, we got a Thrawn miniseries coming out, so we do get that Heir to the Empire.
Yeah.
Yay.
So yeah,
That means it's canon. I mean, Thrawn's
shows up in what, Rebels?
Yeah, he was in Rebels, so
Yeah.
so he exists, and he has a book.
By Timothy Zahn.
Yeah, which I have read. I think I
just-
talked about it in the interview.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just finished speaking of the Marvel, just to go on a positive.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been too negative.
You are a negative Nancy.
Is I finished the first volume of the new Charles Soule Vader that came out, and it's really good. Really, really cool stuff about him getting that lightsaber. Where does that red lightsaber come from? So check that out.
Yeah. I think that's what distinguishes it from because the Kieran Gillen.
But he's lived in that Vader suit for a while. I mean, that's in between 4 and 5.
Yeah, this one's like early days Vader.
This is seconds after. I mean, this might as well be the him screaming no. Basically, is where it starts off in
Issue 1.
issue 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Definitely check it out. But yeah, thanks again, Heather. This has been
Yes.
another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
Fried chicken.
Thank you very much, Qui-Gon Jinn.
Good night, Eric Bana.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual Catching Up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.